In Europe, armored warfare was a story of speed, power, and massive tank battles. But on the sun-scorched islands of the Pacific, it was entirely different. The challenge wasn't just the enemy, but also the difficult landscape of impenetrable jungle, razor-sharp coral, and rain-soaked mud. Early in the war, Stuarts were the workhorse of the island-hopping campaign. It adapted to a punishing environment and paved the way for a new generation of U.S. tanks. In late 1941, the U.S. Army deployed its only armored force in the Philippines, consisted of 2 battalions of M3 Stuart light tanks, later combined as the Provisional Tank Group. The Stuart was lightly built and fast, with a 37mm gun that could pierce Japan's primary early war tank, the Type 95 Hago. These first encounters marked the debut of U.S. armor in World War II and revealed both strengths and weaknesses. At De Mortis, American crews fought the first U.S. tank versus tank battle of the war, proving their weapons effective, but American tanks suffered losses when exposed in open terrain. Later clashes, such as at Baluag, showed the Stuart's superiority in close combat, where its firepower and crew coordination overwhelmed Japanese tanks without loss. Yet, tactical victories could not offset larger strategic problems. Fuel shortages, inadequate logistics, and the relentless Japanese advance forced a retreat into Bataan. This demonstrated how strategic limitations, rather than battlefield performance, shaped the Stuarts' role in the campaign. In early 1942, the M3 Stuarts of the Provisional Tank Group remained central to the defense of Bataan. Their lightweight and speed allowed them to operate on poor roads, conduct counterattacks, and act as mobile artillery. Its 37mm gun and multiple machine guns were effective against both enemy tanks and infantry. Yet Japanese infantry proved resourceful, using anti-tank guns, satchel charges, and artillery to offset the Stuarts' firepower and mobility advantage. Air power compounded the pressure, with strafing and bombing raids targeting tanks and their supply lines. By April, logistical collapse, fuel shortages, and a lack of spare parts rendered remaining Stuarts immobile. After ordered to destroy their tanks to prevent capture, the American armored force ceased to exist as fighting units in the Philippines. The Stuarts were used later that year during the Guadalcanal campaign, where its lightweight again proved valuable. In jungle conditions unsuited to heavier vehicles, the tank was used as mobile fire support, particularly against fortified Japanese positions. Its 37mm gun proved highly effective in neutralizing earth and pillboxes, while its machine guns supported infantry in close fighting. By 1942, the U.S. had produced Stuarts in large numbers, ensuring steady availability across the Pacific theater. Operational experience from both Bataan and Guadalcanal revealed the Stuart's dual character. It was an agile, adaptable weapon that filled the critical gap in early Allied campaigns, but its light armor and limited gun power made it increasingly unsuited for prolonged stand-up fights. By 1943, the M3 Stuart light tank had proven itself indispensable in jungle warfare, where mobility and reliability often mattered more than firepower. In New Guinea, Australian forces first employed the M3A1 during the grueling Buna-Gona fighting. The Stuart's light weight allowed it to traverse narrow jungle tracks, but it was highly vulnerable to concealed Japanese guns, and several were destroyed in frontal assaults. Casualties in these battles were heavy, which were the consequence of high costs of pressing armor into fortified jungle positions. As the Allies advanced through the Solomon Islands, the M3 Stuart, alongside its improved M5 variant, played a central role in support operations. In New Georgia, the Japanese 37 and 47mm anti-tank guns could still penetrate the Stuart's thin armor. Mechanical reliability of the M5 ensured they remained in the fight despite punishing conditions. The November assault on Tarawa revealed both the strengths and limits of light tanks and amphibious warfare. Coral reefs, mines, and concentrated Japanese fire caused operational and combat losses among Stuart tanks. This battle also marked the Pacific debut of the M4 Sherman medium tank, whose 75mm gun proved far more effective against Japanese concrete bunkers. Yet even Shermans were vulnerable, sinking in shell craters or succumbing to mines. At Cape Gloucester, the M5A1 Stuart continued to demonstrate its value when paired with infantry. Though frequently bogged down in mud and swamps, tank infantry teams successfully cleared Japanese bunkers with coordinated assaults. By late 1943, the Stuart remained vital in the Pacific, yet its role increasingly pointed toward complementing the heavier M4 Sherman in future campaigns. By 1944, the M5 Stuart has shifted from its early war role as a frontline tank to a supporting one. The growing dominance of the M4 Sherman, with its heavier armor and armament, relegated the Stuart into reconnaissance, fire support, and security duties. On Saipan, the Stuart's speed and low ground pressure made it effective for scouting and flank protection. But the terrain exposed its vulnerabilities. Sandy beaches, coral ridges, and buried charges often immobilized tanks regardless of type. Japanese defenses used mines made of aerial bombs, and artillery targeted landing zones with precision. The Stuart's 37mm gun proved inadequate against reinforced bunkers, requiring close-range fire or support from flamethrower variants. Yet, Stuarts could suppress Japanese positions that heavier Shermans could not reach as quickly. Peleliu's jagged coral and extensive cave systems also neutralized the advantages of light armor and speed. The terrain placed immense mechanical strain on vehicles. Repeated combat experience further reinforced the doctrinal lesson that light tanks alone could no longer overcome improved island defenses. Leyte presented a different environment, with its larger size and flatter terrain. Stuart's mobility was more appreciated, and soft ground favored its lighter weight. Within tank battalions, Stuarts typically assigned to a light company to assist Sherman companies. Their tasks included scouting roads ahead of infantry and securing flanks, while Shermans were part of the primary pushes. By late 1944, the M5 Stuart was no longer a decisive weapon. Instead, it became a flexible tool within a combined arms system, valued for mobility, reliability, and adaptability in complex environments. By 1945, the M5A1 Stuart was no longer a frontline battle tank, but remained integral to U.S. ground operations. Late-war American tank battalions typically mixed 3 companies of Sherman medium tanks with 1 company of Stuarts, making the light tanks a consistent presence. Its speed, low ground pressure, and mechanical reliability ensured that it could still fill valuable reconnaissance and infantry support roles. The battle for Luzon from January to August 1945 marked one of the Stuarts' last major campaigns. Units such as the 716th Tank Battalion fielded around 60 Shermans and 17 Stuarts, a typical ratio by this stage of the war. While Sherman supplied most of the heavy firepower, Stuart crews scouted ahead, screened convoys, and secured flanks. Logistic reports highlighted that Stuarts were still firing significant quantities of 37mm ammunition, along with massive expenditure of 75mm rounds and heavy artillery shells from other units. Stuart's limitations, however, were increasingly evident. Japanese defenses employed more 47mm anti-tank guns, 25mm anti-aircraft guns, and mines, all capable of destroying or disabling the lightly armored vehicle. Suicide attacks with lunge mines added another layer of threat. The Battle of Okinawa reinforced this trend, and fortified cave networks demanded the presence of heavy weapons that the Stuart could not provide. Veterans described the Stuart's role as that of a glorified machine gun carrier, which was vital for suppressing Japanese infantry, but ineffective against deep bunkers. Japan employed higher density of anti-tank guns in Okinawa in prepared positions that caused steady losses, while logistic strains complicated resupply. The M24 Chaffee was introduced in late 1944 and directly designed to correct the deficiencies of the M3-M5 Stuart. It preserved the light tank's trademark mobility, but introduced a decisive upgrade with its bigger 75mm M6 gun. On Okinawa, the Chaffee's 75mm high-explosive rounds would have been invaluable. The Stuart had often been relegated to a support role because its gun could not neutralize hardened targets, leaving the job to Shermans, engineers, or flamethrower tanks. A Chaffee-equipped light tank company could have shouldered more of the direct assault burden. However, in terms of protection, the Chaffee only offered incremental improvements. Its sloped armor gave better resistance to small-caliber fire, but it remained vulnerable to light anti-tank weapons, including Japanese 47mm anti-tank guns, mines, and demolition charge. Despite weighing more than the Stuart, the Chaffee retained high road speed and superior cross-country performance from its torsion bar suspension. This would have been a distinct advantage on Okinawa's rugged, crater terrain, where mechanical strain frequently immobilized Stuarts and Sherman. Thank you for watching, and see you in our next videos.